Hi, I'm Joseph Davis. I took part in CYA's Fall 2017 program, and I graduated from Wake Forest University in North Carolina in 2019 with a major in history and double minors in classical studies and politics and international affairs. At the very beginning of my study abroad experience, I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to study in Athens. As someone that studied ancient Greek history in college, especially with my classical studies minor, I really wanted to go somewhere that would help further my understanding, and Athens is exactly the perfect place for that. For a brief period of time, I considered studying abroad in Rome, and then I realized the ancient Romans took all their history and culture from the ancient Greeks anyway. So if the ancient Greeks history was that interesting, then I should probably just study it directly. And that's what I did. And when I was looking at programs, I wanted to do a program that not a lot of people from my school would go on. A lot of kids from Wake Forest go on school-sponsored programs, and that's not something I wanted to do because a lot of those programs restrict what you want to study. I wanted to study ancient Greek culture, and I wanted a program that would allow me to do that. And by sheer coincidence, one of my friends from Wake Forest happened to be on this program 2 years earlier. And the second that I mentioned that I wanted to go to Greece, she pulled me aside, and for what seemed like a week, she would constantly text me updates on what she did, the best things to do, and I applied to the program, and I got in, and the rest is history. While I was a student at CYA, I took part in 4 different classes. The first class I took was Ancient Greek, and it was one of the most fun classes I've ever taken. The problem was I wasn't very good at ancient Greek, which is fine until you realize that a second class that I took was epigraphy. And if you didn't know, epigraphy is 100% reliant on reading, understanding, and interpreting ancient Greek inscriptions. And so because I wasn't very good at the first class, I wasn't very good at the second class. But at the end of the program, I was able to go up to the Acropolis and read different inscriptions that I most certainly never thought I would have. And I wouldn't trade the experience for the world because it helped me understand my understanding of ancient Greek culture in a way that I never would have if I hadn't thrown myself into that position. But the most important class I probably took was a class on Alexander the Great by Professor Karavas. I enjoyed the class so much that I ended up going back to Wake Forest and writing my history thesis on Alexander the Great, specifically at the Mutiny of Opus. But the great part about CYA and Athens, Greece in itself is that you don't have to do anything specific in order to have fun. And there's so much for the city to offer that you can do whatever you want on your own terms, depending on what you're interested in. I had friends who went to CYA that were interested in the environment, and they were able to look at a section of the world that they otherwise normally wouldn't have, completely different from the United States. I had friends come to CYA who were interested in just the European political sphere, specifically immigration, and Greece is a perfect place for that, and they were able to do that. And for myself, I was interested in ancient Greek history. Of course, Athens is a perfect place for that. But it's incredible how people of all different backgrounds are able to come to a certain place and just have the freedom to study and pursue what they want. And Athens is such an incredible city. For the most part, when I wasn't traveling to other places, I would walk down the street and I would always find something new in Athens. I enjoyed going to all of the ancient historical sites that Athens has to offer, specifically the Acropolis. I probably went to the Acropolis like 14 or 15 times while I was in Greece, because I had studied about it, I had read about it, and there's frankly nothing else like it in the whole entire world. But there's also little things about Greece that makes it great. Some of the very first days, my roommates and I walked down the street and we picked a cafe. And for the rest of the program, we would go there every morning for a latte. And we became super close to the owner, so that we would start talking both in English and in Greek by the end of that. There were also farmers markets that would be right next to our apartment complex on Fridays. So my roommates would go and we would buy all the fruit and all the vegetables that we wanted, specifically pomegranates. I love pomegranates. It's my favorite fruit. And Greece has the absolute best pomegranates that the world has to offer. I have so many memories from my study abroad program, which I know everyone else says, but the great part about this program is you'll have memories like myself where I went up to the Acropolis and it's something that I could never get over. But the greatest memories are the memories that I never would have expected to have going into the program. I have memories of going to Delphi and watching and singing Mamma Mia with everybody else in my program. I have a great memory of going to NAFLIO and having the best pumpkin ravioli of my whole entire life. I have a memory of being in Greece, and I'll never forget, where someone mistook me as a local, which I didn't even know was at the top of my bucket list, but I learned very quickly it was when it happened. When we went to Crete, I discovered my absolute favorite beer called Lyra. And if I had thought ahead about it, I would have bought out the whole island and brought it back to Athens for myself. It's just a bunch of these little moments and memories that CYA provides, but you don't expect it. But also in turn, those are the greatest moments. After my CYA program, I graduated from Wake Forest in 2019. I spent the next 2 years in Washington, D.C., studying and being part of energy and environmental legislation in the political sphere. I also received a master's from WashU in St. Louis, and currently I am a law student at the University of Richmond School of Law with the focus, hopefully, on environmental law. I plan to move back to Washington, D.C. at some point in the future and work on energy and environmental legislation again. My first thing I would say is, obviously, being the biased person I am, you should go to the Acropolis once, twice, maybe 15 times like me. It's just the pinnacle icon of Athens. But something more obscure, I would say, is I think every CYA student should get a nice pair of Greek sandals. There's so many good places in Athens that you can get them, and they'll last you forever. I still have mine, and I probably wore mine every single day for the past 4 years. It's a really nice thing to have within the city, but it's also a really nice thing to have if you ever leave Athens, when you go back to the States. It's like a nice, authentic memento that you can bring back, that you use every single day to remind you of your trip. And there, like I said, there's so many places in the city that you can get them. And there are even some really nice specialized places that will customize them to your feet. And it's just a great time all around. So that would be my advice to every student there. My biggest piece of advice for people going on this program is I would get to know all the people both in Athens and on your program. I didn't know any Greek coming into this, and I was afraid of the language barrier, not knowing any of the language. But all the best advice I received in Greece was from the locals themselves. And by the time I left the program, I probably could walk up to 20 of them and talk with them about an assortment of things. Like, for example, every morning I would go to the same cafe and I would order a latte. And the owner and I would talk for 10 minutes about literally anything, about my time back in the States or his favorite donut shop in Athens. And it's the little moments like that that really allow you to get to know the insides and outsides of the city. And for people in my program, it might seem like small, but there are so many connections. And my roommates and I, one was from California, one was from Minnesota, one was from Georgia, and all of us were completely different, and we're all still great friends to this day. In fact, I actually took a trip to London with my family over Thanksgiving, and I walked inside a random Starbucks, and one of my roommates just happened to be sitting there. I've had kids from the program invite me to their weddings and create shirts like this one that I still wear to this day. There was a girl in my program from Wake Forest who I honestly didn't know even existed, and now we're best friends because of the program. I even met my girlfriend on CYA's program. And although I can't guarantee that's going to happen to everyone who goes on the program, there's a chance it could happen. And so a lot of these little things that you aren't going to expect, they're going to be connections for the rest of your life. And you're going to be very grateful that you have them.